Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 9 of the Elouise Show. Today, we will be discussing money trends with director and videographer Wicked Swami, also who I refer to as Ty. Ty, welcome to the Elouise Show. How are you? Tyler.
Yeah, all right. Hey, what's going on?
Welcome to the Elouise Show. So, tell me a little bit about, let's just start off with you, what you have going on. You're a photographer, videographer. What projects are you working on right now? Where can people follow you on Instagram if they want to check out your work? Let us know.
Well, I guess social media wise, Instagram would be wickedswami.tv. Project wise, I do have a documentary coming up. I'm still just collecting footage for it, but the whole template is done. Other than that, I have a couple other projects I got in the works, but I want to do everything right. So I'm just gonna be ready when the opportunity presents itself to execute it.
In terms of content with regards to the documentary that you're working on, is it related to current events or is it something else?
I would say related to current events. Yeah, just about, what people think right now. I feel that I want to make something where legitimately people could communicate, like express themselves on social media, but we're at a time when it kind of necessarily isn't about facts anymore. It's just about what people see. And they'll defend it to their grave and not even actually research it. Like people use.
Oh, Ty, unfortunately, the Wi-Fi connection is like in and out. And so I'm catching bits and pieces of what you're saying. You're saying that right now we live in an age where people don't do the right amount of research as it relates to the topics that they're talking about, but that they have strong opinions on said topics, right? And when you say
Yes.
current events, are we talking politics or are we talking, some of the social movements that have been happening?
I would say social movements.
Mm-hmm.
I want to more so, especially when it comes to minorities and people of color, just them explaining how they feel right now. Like, as of we've currently never in our lives ever gone through something like this. And then the whole, pandemic and everything. But then on top of that, just so many underlying things that are happening and also that are coming to light.
Yeah. It's interesting. So just like with regard to the pandemic put a bunch of people in like a bad money situation, right? And that's what we're gonna kind of talk about a little bit today is like money trends, right? But I feel like from the American perspective, right, because we are living in America, you can't really talk about money or money trends without addressing the term capitalism. So before I do my little Google search and pull up the definition according to Merriam-Webster or Oxford, one of our verified sources, I just want to know if you can explain in your own words what this word capitalism and how would you define it and why is it a concept that's integral to grasp when considering a conversation on society, politics, and economics in America?
I guess that system is, I feel, my opinion. I guess it's not necessarily bad, but it's with what intent. Like, it allows anybody to, kind of make their own price and do their own business. Said you can ask for as much money as you want, but it starts to get in a very evil way where you start, I don't know, necessarily privatizing things that people need to live. So yes, like I'm a realtor, I own thousands and thousands of, apartments or homes in general, buildings. And I go into a certain community. I go into the hood. I'm not from the hood, but I go into the hood. Everything here is cheap. Okay, I'm gonna buy up these places that, people put up for sale. And I, yeah. And if you're a realtor, the income, the general income based on, I would say, zip codes. So you come to the zip code where the basic income is like maybe $30,000 to $50,000, but then I would say a 2-bedroom should necessarily cost, in all actuality, probably $1,000. A studio, maybe 500, and you just come into a place where those prices fit that area based upon how the system, invested into that area when it comes to parks, schools, down to the sidewalks, to the streets conditions, like potholes and the roads and everything not being fixed, but always being plowed during the winter.
Yeah.
And they just come in and they see maybe 500 for a studio. I technically have the right to ask for whatever price I want. Okay, now the studio is now $1,000. And this two bedroom, I'm gonna make it 2,000, maybe 2,500.
There's a word for what you're talking about. Isn't it called price gouging? Like what people did with Clorox and Lysol wipes and hand sanitizer and masks at the time that the pandemic broke. But before we even get into that, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to pull up the Oxford definition, dare I say, of capitalism. So hold on, let me share my screen. Here we go. Perfect. So we're on Google, right? Which is a search engine, not a source, for those of us who didn't know that. And we're going to look up capitalism. Okay, and we're gonna go to Merriam-Webster because Merriam-Webster came up before Oxford. So, definition of capitalism as per Merriam-Webster is an economic system characterized by private or corporate ownership of capital goods, by investments that are determined by private decision, and by prices, production, and distribution of goods that are determined mainly by competition in a free market. So if I had to break down this definition of capitalism, it basically tells me that the pricing of goods or services are dependent on like the amount of competition. So like kind of supply and demand. If there is a demand for it, then the price goes up. If there's not a demand for it, the price goes down, kind of thing. Or even like if there's only one person that's doing it, they really have control over what pricing is because that's the only person who you can get it from, kind of thing. Am I correct in that? Understanding or interpretation of the definition per Merriam-Webster?
Yeah, that's perfect. It's definitely perfect because to me, that's how I like companies like, I guess, like Amazon, where they will put a factory in your community. I think there's like 2 Amazon warehouses in New York right now. I think one in the Bronx, if I'm not mistaken, and one in Brooklyn. But it becomes that little power shift, especially during these times where bigger corporations could now jump on the opportunity. So throughout a whole pandemic broke out, um, tens of thousands of people have died, but yet Amazon shot up to $1 trillion network wise. But then,
how is that possible?
Well, because stores closed and Amazon already sold everything. So now it's just more so we're kind of all you have.
Stores closed, you can't go outside. Amazon has everything in one place. So because we're the one-stop shop for everything, you have to come to us for everything. Thus our stocks goes up, even though people are dying outside. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's funny because like that makes me think about, okay, so you have this big conglomerate that's called Amazon, right? And in previous episodes of the Elouise Show, I've discussed with some of my guests like this idea of redistribution of the dollar to Black businesses, like the redistribution of wealth. So that's been a recurring topic. Do you think that this might be an effective way to contribute to the advancement socially and economically to the advancement of Black people? Like, so for instance, instead of buying our stuff from Amazon during the pandemic, if we were buying it from a small business, right? A small Black owned business that, you know, happens to do their own shipping and handling, like, could we have maybe done some good during the pandemic?
Yeah, we could have had, I think it would have been even better if, because I see here and there people, people of color starting shipping businesses. So I think that's a huge thing that needs to be, I guess, privatized for Black people or people of color, because it's just a lot of Black businesses are suffering right now online because they're not getting the same shipment wise, all this product, but transportation losing money because people could just cancel their orders, especially if it reaches past a certain, couple of days.
So wait,
some people just, but that's customers in general.
I'm so sorry. So the internet was like a little choppy. Okay. So I just wanted to like just confirm what you're saying. So it's been a little tough for Black owned businesses to like sustain their business is what you're saying, because of shipping, they haven't been able to ship. What exactly were you saying?
I would say the consistency. A lot of them have come out to talk about consistency with certain places that are not their demographic and the non-consistency with them. And it's one of those things where it's in the numbers, and people will forever not talk about it because I think the large amount of that business is predominantly white. So it's kind of a thing of, I'm not against you, but I don't necessarily care because it doesn't phase my life in any type of more so of a y'all thing, which is a huge thing that I want the Black community to understand.
You're referring to the shipping business specific, because you're saying the business, you're speaking about a specific industry. I just want to be clear about which industry you're discussing right now.
I would say businesses like UPS, FedEx.
Okay.
I honestly feel that it's based upon, I guess, your zip code, because I could say I got maybe 3 packages today from various places, and they were all dented. Like, if there was something fragile in there, it would have been broken, but there was a couple pieces of equipment where like the sides were like just dented in. I see my neighbors talk about it, but I have a friend that lives in Long Beach. Is it Long Beach? I think is that Long Beach? Summer, it's in New York, but it's predominantly white neighborhood, and it's a legitimate thing. Like, I don't know what's this whole thing like. If you have to have like a track background to be like a FedEx delivery man or delivery woman, like they will ring your doorbell, put your package down, and be in the truck like within 5 seconds before you even get to the door.
So what you're alluding,
but I see in his neighborhood they act completely different.
So what you're alluding to,
saying hi to everybody,
is this idea of like some sort of like classism, essentially, as it relates to like delivering these packages. If you're in a better zip code, you take better care. If you're in a worse zip code, you take lesser care, or an impoverished zip code. Let's not say worse. An impoverished zip code, you take less care of said package. And you're saying that this is a disadvantage to small business owners because basically it's messing up their businesses. They're not the conglomerate Amazon. They can't use their own in-house delivery service, so they have to go through like UPS, FedEx, or USPS. And they're the to an extent, the you know, how well the package is received is contingent on like the care that it was handled with during the delivery process. Okay, so with that said though, do you think that it is impossible in a time where, you know, we are supposed to be socially distancing, we're not supposed to really be outside, where a lot of storefronts have closed, and so a lot of businesses have moved to a digital landscape, into a virtual landscape? Are you saying that it's not really possible for us to redistribute wealth in this time because we won't see consistency with like the level of quality because of what these small businesses need?
Yeah, it would more so have to be just our own delivery systems, understanding that, and have it be local. So just how you would drive by the USPS, you know, building, or the postal office, and you'd see their trucks. I honestly feel like if more people were to start up just, I don't know, more businesses in the trucking business, it would become.
Doesn't that to an extent limit like the growth potential of small businesses? If for instance, if I have a business, let's say I sell cameras, right? You know, as someone who's maybe selling cameras, my greatest market will be, yes, New York, but it'll also be like places like California, Georgia, probably you know, Southern Florida, places that are, you know, predominant or like, you know, major metropolitan areas that also have the tendency to have creatives there. Like that would be my potential market for selling a camera, right? Now, with that said, if my camera business was completely, my small camera business was completely dependent on like a privately owned shipping company, doesn't that limit my growth potential? If I can only sell in the New York area, although New York is great and big, how is my small business supposed to compete with like B&H, which is Jewish owned?
To that, probably these local delivery companies just come to communicate to everybody, have a seat at the table. So that would actually give more, that would give more shifts, because you'd have shifts for people. Would you create more jobs? Drivers for inner city delivery, and drivers for outer city transportation. So with the tracking, I would say if you were to do it, you have the tracking code, and then you have the tracking information, and it will tell you which organization that it transferred to. So you'd be like, all right, it started with, I would say, David's father and son, you know, postal service. You can check your information, and you wanted to send it to, I would say, Florida. So from Brooklyn, from New York, it came down to maybe, I don't know, Atlanta. And that's that's a company in Atlanta that also does deliveries. Then you deliver it down to Florida. So it's like kind of everybody getting a piece of the pie, and everything's still in work. More availability for jobs, more availability for shifts because there's so much activity. But at the same time, I feel that within those constructs, things like benefits and all these other things should be more prioritized for the employees, because I feel a lot of employees in the bigger corporate industry, trucking business, they get these super long hours. Paid varies on like which company you're contracted with, but it's like, I honestly feel that that industry is not healthy. They have you driving for 12, maybe 15 hours at a time, when really you would only have to drive for 6 hours and still get the same amount of money, or you could do overtime.
I think what you're saying is a really, really great idea. Like the importance of there being more Black owned shipping companies to kind of work as like an asset, or to the small businesses that are emerging all over, and the ones that have been in existence for a while. It'll probably help these small businesses to sustain their ownership, as opposed to having to sell to a larger conglomerate just to pay rent. So with that said, because that was such a good idea, can you think of any other clever things that we can do to build up Black communities while, also building up our pockets today in 2020?
I would say agriculture.
Give me more. What about agriculture? What do you do? I live in New York City. What can I do in terms of agriculture? Help me.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you're frozen.
Oh, like Elsa? I said, what can I do? I live in New York. I live in New York City. I want to get involved in agriculture. How do I get involved in agriculture if I live in the city, number one? And number two, how does getting involved in agriculture help my pockets?
So I could say, on a lower scale, I would say that you join with, I guess you find a couple other people who are in the same entrepreneurial mindset as yourself, and you all go in on, I wouldn't say real estate in New York, but more, no, I would say real estate, but not houses, but more so plots of land. So don't even build on it. Just get maybe as many plots of land as you can to side by side, and just turn that into a private garden. And then from that's kind of like, I would say, inner city farmers market. And then I would say
how would you sustain a garden in New York City during the winter time, though?
But then that's also to the whole thing of living in New York. We have the amenity of having anything at any time. So we're in winter, but yet I could get things like tomatoes and apples. And it's technically not in season, but I can still get it. And I think that's, I don't know if it's just an American thing, but the convenience and just getting used to the convenience of, not even to the extent of having a deli, but by the fact that we're not necessarily farmers to an extent. Like, we don't have to worry about these things. People from all over the country will bring it to our local places. But honestly, when you eat, depending on what grows in what season, it helps your body through that particular season. So through the cold times, maybe some potatoes, pumpkin, zucchini.
Oh, so what you're saying is that basically in the winter months, we should grow things that grow in the winter months, i.e. things that are in season, because that's going to be healthier for us. And it's really interesting because you mentioned the idea of getting a plot of land and turning that into a garden. And one phenomenon, I don't know that we can call it a phenomenon, but one trend that I've noticed in the city, especially over the last decade, has been like these rooftop gardens that they have, all over New York City.
Yeah.
And some of them are even act as restaurants as well, where like you literally do farm to table. They take stuff from the garden and then they make a meal out of it. So like, and then I read somewhere that when you plant on a roof, like when you plant at the top on the roof of like your household, you basically save on energy, especially in the summertime, because what you're growing on the roof actually cools the entire house or building and stuff like that. So I can see how, like, if you're saving money on your energy bill because you planted on your rooftop, that makes sense. You're saving money on your grocery bill because all you did was buy the seeds and you don't have to go to the supermarket for as many things as possible. You're eating healthier, so like you're saving money on healthcare or even preventative measures because like, you don't have a bunch of hormones, inside of you and stuff like that. So that's actually a really good idea. You gave me two great ideas. One of the good ideas you said was, Black people, we need our own like interstate transportation. And that starts with like local, shipping companies uniting to create this like, this interstate shipping company. I don't know what we would call it. Black Federal Express. I don't know.
That's good. That's good. That might be it right there.
That's the way to put it. You got Black. Remember, you got mail in the 90s. Let's see. And then the other idea is, us really learning more about agriculture, getting more involved in.
I can hear what you said.
Us learning more about agriculture and getting more involved in agriculture. So I think those are two phenomenal ideas. By the way, speaking of small businesses, because we just talked about agriculture and we touched upon health, there's like, I don't know who lives in like the Ridgewood, Bushwick community, but the gyms are supposed to be opening up next month, I believe, for like limited entry. And there is a new gym that's opening. It's super dope. If you give me 2 seconds, I'm going to tell you the name of it. It is, owned by, people who are descendants of the Caribbean. So, still Black owned. I believe it's also Latin owned. 1 second. What is the name of the gym? What is the name of the gym? Platinum Hands Boxing. All right, so if your child, want to get into shape, if you want to learn how to defend yourself, if maybe you could afford to blow off some steam, definitely reach out to @JenBad on Instagram. That's JenBad. Jenny Badillo, I believe she is one of the owners at Platinum Hands Boxing. And yeah, this is, I believe, a small owned business, a family owned business that, that this particular business is new, but they've been involved in the boxing and gym industry for a while. So like, definitely check them out. And you get to meet like a local, if you go there, you get to meet like a local upcoming boxer. From what I believe, he's going to be the next best thing that comes out of New York. He's a professional boxer. I think right now he is, I'm going to mess it up, like 11-0. Don't kill me. His name is Matthew Lefty Guns Gonzalez. I'm wearing the shirt. Fire boxer. Definitely check him out. He trains all the time. It's a lifestyle for him. He's heavily involved in the gym. He, you know, gives back to the community. He works hand in hand with the kids. So check out Platinum Hands Boxing in Ridgewood. It's super fire. I'm sorry that I went off on a tangent. Just that entire team is amazing. So.
Nah, you actually put me on.
Oh no, I can't hear you because it sounds like you're underwater.
I'll definitely look into them.
What did you say?
I said I'm a look into them.
Definitely, no, check them out. Like they're super dope. The classes are affordable, they're amazing. And if you have any kids or you know of any kids that need something to do during this pandemic, they offer virtual classes. Like parents, if any parents are listening and you just like, you know, you just want to relax for like an hour, sign your kid up for this virtual class and leave the room. And let them learn how to, you know, jab. It's like a win-win-win.
That's hella dope. Actually, yeah. That needs to be more prevalent.
Yeah, they're heavily in the community too. They do great things. Like, and that's what I love about that that team. Okay, so let's bring it back. I kind of got off on a tangent. So if someone is interested, because like, so for instance, I'm always interested in learning more about economics, right? I'm always interested in learning about ways to contribute to my community without putting myself at a fiscal disadvantage, without hurting my own pockets. So a lot of the times, like, I feel like the information is out there, we just don't know where to go. So what resources would you recommend to like someone who's interested in society, economics, or even politics? Are there books that they should be reading? Are there podcasts that they should be listening to? Is there something on YouTube that you think is fire? Like, put us on.
I would say, oh, that's a loaded question.
I know. Okay, where do you go? What do you read? How do you stay up on it?
Stay up on it. I usually just I feel that there's always, especially now more than ever, there's a lot of things that like just go on just every single day, to an extent that it's like, it's very stressful. And when it comes to just, I mean, who do I usually, I mean, I do like financial wise, I would say that I do like tap into his name is Derek Grace.
Oh, Derek Grace, I follow him on Instagram.
What he yeah.
But for people who don't follow,
I honestly, I fuck with it so much. So Derek Grace, that man is an independent entrepreneur. That man will, one of the few people right now who shows the new generation that you don't have to be boxed in when it comes to making your money. Whatever you feel is a good idea, business-wise, way possible, and you legitimately don't undercut yourself, do not half-ass yourself, because you're putting yourself in that position to run this. So you have to teaching the understandings of patience, timing, and just consistency. And
timing and consistency. Consistency is so key. That's the part right there. That's the part right there. If you've heard nothing else on the Elouise Show today, know that if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, or if you're just trying to accomplish anything at all, like, consistency is key to greatness. And there's not a single person out there that is successful in their own right, in their own lane, in their own career, that will tell you otherwise. That's probably the one commonality. Well, there's more than one. There's that one, and then there's the whole thing about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Buddy.
Oh yeah, that's super important.
Okay, so like, you get up,
strive to be uncomfortable.
How do you tap into current events? Like, are you seeing things on your Instagram story? Are you reading New York Times? Are you a Al Jazeera reader? Like, you know, does World Star keep you up to date? Like, where do you go for your information?
Usually I just I like Al Jazeera because it shows other parts of the world, because America only really cares about America. Like, Americans only know about American events. So I tap into Al Jazeera to know what the people in, the Middle East and all those other countries on the other side of the world go through, which is, in America, yes, it's bad right now, but to see what other people are going through in, like, which country where, yeah.
No, it's really cool.
It's
I've pulled up the Al Jazeera website. I'm pretty sure you can see it on your end.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because it gives you news from like different regions here. You can watch documentaries. They have an entire like content section. You can like watch shows. They'll keep you up to date on investigations. That's fire. I had a friend put me onto Al Jazeera back in like 2010. Changed my life. Changed my world. Okay, cool. So Al Jazeera for information. What else? Like, what else are you doing? Are you reading any good books right now?
I am actually, I can show you the book that I'm reading right now. And it's a huge, contributor to like one of my current projects that I'm writing. I don't know if I have it on. Did I toss it on the bed? Because it was a very rare book that I was given. I kind of feel bad that I can't find it right now. I hope I didn't lose it.
No,
but where is it? Oh, here it is. C.G. Jung, but it's called Dreams. And it's more so about, from what I'm up to right now, the analysis of dreams and the functionality of dreams.
That's not. Sorry, I don't mean to stop you on what the book is about. I'm just curious. Is that the same Jung that's like, so there's a but I don't remember his first name. There's a renowned he's a psychologist, personality psychologist, and I believe his name is Jung. Is that the same one that wrote that book, or is this like another person who just happens to have the same last name?
I particularly don't know. It was a gift because it was so yeah, I could talk about this other project. I was very in touch with like my spiritual side from maybe very young to right till I graduated high school, and I used to have very, very, very deja vu dreams. And it was to the extent of just, I guess, astral projection. Like, I knew it particularly when I had I have family in Maryland, and we would go there Memorial Day weekend. So this was maybe like 6 years ago, where I fell asleep in the living room, and I woke up, and my grandmother, who had passed away like years before, but she looked really young, and she was like, "Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Would you mind going for a walk?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, "Oh, snap. Like, what are you doing here?"
So
and she was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I just came in."
She just came in and?
Yeah, she just popped in. I opened the door for her and everything. Outside as I doing, what's going on with my life and everything. And I'm just telling her, I'm like, yeah, you know, I think this was the time when I was really getting into like videography and just film in general. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I think that's when I bought my first camera. It was the Canon 60D. I was like, you know, I bought my camera, I bought my laptop, you know, I got these classes in school that's teaching me how to like use the camera and stuff. And I think I really want to do this with my life. And she's just like giving me just so much positivity. And from me growing up in the same house as my grandmother, I only knew her for short hair, but then I seen her with a really long hair. In this moment, I'm like, yo, you know, we used to call her mama. I'm like, mama, you have like really like long, beautiful hair. And she was like, yeah, I did. So that he put something in my hair. Like, but then I'm like, wait, don't worry about it. Right now it's about you. She lays me down to sleep. I wake up and it's daytime.
So Ty, so this project that you're working on,
And
it's the project that you're working on, the documentary, it's the story of your grandmother, or it's about astral projection?
Not. Yeah, it's like somewhat of a mini series, and it will be on astral projection, and more so, I have tons and tons of stories of when.
So wait.
I did.
Before you go into that, before you even go into that, I have a question, right? So how would you consider like the market value of like a series like that? Like how would you put it out there? How would you make money off of it? Like what would you consider in terms of distribution as it relates to like this series? Or have you like, you're like not there yet in terms of this?
No, I'm there.
Development.
I'm there. I have an idea of how I would want to do it. Like I have how I would want to do like distribute all my projects right now.
What is
like I have written down. It's kind of surprise. I'm not gonna lie. The thing is,
that's cool. Sometimes you have to necessarily say, you don't have to say it yet. So let's go into like, all right, you're at the beginning stage of creating this this documentary. As you collaborate with people, like, you know, you're definitely like getting people to like sign contracts, right? Because I worked on a project not too long ago, and someone had made a joke that whenever they're working on projects with Black people, they never receive a contract, which I personally didn't appreciate, because on the projects that I work on, we do create contracts. I mean, some contracts are a little bit more difficult to create than others, because you have to create, decide like ownership of said project, like, and what that looks like now versus later. But some contracts are pretty straightforward. So like the extras get a contract, like the crew gets a contract, like everybody should have a contract. So have you started filming yet? And what is the process? what is your process in terms of like contracts? Do you use things that have already been created for you, or do you like, are you hiring people to help you out with like language? Or do you just like,
I would say that the documentary was a little different, I guess. I could say that it's not something that I don't think necessarily is for me, like, to say that I own. That's why when I ask people to be a part of it, I tell them, I don't want you to feel like you have to ever constrain yourself when you're talking. While you're being a part of this, you say what you say, and you say how you feel. And I'll ask you if you want me to take out anything. But I just always ask the people who are a part of it, like, honestly, don't hold back.
What? You give up control?
Like, honestly.
That's brave.
Yeah, like, this.
That's brave. I honestly, like,
this.
I say with all the love in my heart, I could never. I could never. Like, I have to, like, once you sign off, you sign off. I will never, but I would also, I never come from malintent, so I would never make someone look bad, especially not intentionally. Um, but no, like the story, man, it's got to come first. Let's bring it into current events. Because so did you see the video that came out on, was it Monday or Tuesday? Jacob Blake.
I seen something about it. I don't know if it's a good story.
So I was on Facebook. I click on a video. It says sensitive material. So like, boom, like I didn't read the caption. I didn't know what was going on. So I'm watching this video. I'm watching this man go into his car, and then like I'm watching him get shot in the back. But when I tell you, like, it was probably one of the more shocking videos I have seen, because I wasn't expecting it. Like, and you would think that by now I'd be desensitized to it, but I'm not, and it's not okay. And so, like, you know, you and I had a chat, and we said we would get on the Elouise Show, and we would talk about, you know, money trends, how like we live in a capitalist society, how, you know, money is connected to, money is directly connected to like the way that we're living on a social scale, not just from anyways, we said we would talk about what we're talking about, and as I'm like, you know, thinking about this video that I had just seen, I wondered, and not to say that I feel like there's a firm answer to this, but I was curious about your take on it. Do you think do you think race is the only thing to consider when looking at the cases of Jacob Blake, Justin Howell, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Philando Castile, bringing it all the way back, Amadou Diallo? Are we only thinking about race, or should we be looking at social standing and economic standing as well? Should we be looking at, you know, whether is class a part of it, and is like how much money you have a part of it? And while thinking about that, what about, you know, the cases of Kevin Richardson, Raymond Santana, Antron McCray, Yusef Salaam, Corey Wise, Clifford Williams, Hubert Nathan Myers, or even like Khalif Browder? So like this last case made me wonder, is it just race, or is it race and class and money?
I think it's about what you become a police officer for. Like, what is your reason for having that badge and your gun? Like, kind of about, it kind of felt like, I wouldn't say that necessarily. Like, I just want to ask, like, why are you here? Why did you become a cop? And he's just, you know, giving all these explanations, but then I'm just like,
but we're talking, you're talking about the case, the specific case, right? Or like what you would say to the cops in event of this, right? But what we can see historically over time is that this is a pattern. And this is not just, this is a pattern of behavior, of targeted, you know, actions towards usually Black men, and also, you know, Black women. And so my thing is it just our Blackness? Because also when we look at like where these things are happening, usually it's happening in, you know, places that aren't affluent, like places where people don't have a lot of money. I mean, there are the one-off cases where, like, you know, a kid does live in the suburbs and is walking home, and look what happens. So like, what do you think like, do you think money is tied to it at all?
I think that I think it has to do with all of it, like race, money, because you can make money off of racism. So
Because like,
if I lost, yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
I just wanted to say because the first group of names that I named were the list of individuals that have been either killed or violently attacked by police, right? And then the second group of names were people who were wrongfully imprisoned. So like, is it because I'm Black? Is it because I'm broke and I can't afford the attorney? Is it because my family can't afford to, like, you know, the attorneys that they need to get maybe the civil suit or the prosecution that they want? Like, what is it?
It's because you're Black, and that's because we're Black, we're seen as opportunity. We're no longer seen as human beings or organisms. Like how it's kind of the same extent of.
But the reason why that doesn't make sense to me, Ty, is because it has been proven statistically. Like if you look up, I believe there's a Nielsen report on this. The buying power, like where consumer dollars come from, like Black dollars are the most powerful dollars, specifically Black women dollars. Like we control the marketplace. So I don't understand how, you know, if we live in a capitalist society, right, where money is king, right, why you're killing off the people who are spending the most money. Like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It's equaling 11 right now, and I don't understand.
That exact point, that's when I feel that because it doesn't make sense, I think it's legitimate, like insanity. Like if
wait. Sorry. I know I did this again. What are some things, like, let's talk about this, like Black bodies being slain and how we are the buying power in this country, right? What are some things that the viewers should consider, you know, during this election year? Like, what do we need to be hearing from the candidates to make us want to vote them in? As it relates to like money and Blackness and social, like society, and you know, what do we need to hear?
We need to hear more radical things, more so things based upon more accountability towards us by the system. But then, like, if we pay, it's kind of like I pay you to take care of me. I pay you the same amount as Steven's mom in the suburbs. And if I'm consistent and say if, all right, so we break it down to how they like to also use another method they use to, you know, as a deterrent towards us is credit. So I don't make 100,000 a year, but I make 50,000, but also my credit score is 700. Maybe I'm gonna try to push it to, you know, 725 this year. And I have no record. And maybe I did go to school. Maybe I even served in the military. Why is it no matter how good I do, you just won't let me win? I wouldn't even say won't let me win, but why do you try so hard to?
But Ty, what do we want to hear the politicians say? Like, what do?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got off on a tangent.
No, it's cool.
Politicians, I would say more accountability. I don't hear a lot of these politicians coming towards
in the presidential debate. I'm sorry. In the presidential, I want to hear an example. I want to know what you want to hear. Like in the presidential debates, right? What, or vice president debates, right? What do you need to hear on Blackness? What do you need to hear on, you know, economic change? Like, what is it that you need to hear? What makes you feel like this person has your back? What do you need to hear? Give me like a phrase. Like if this person says this, if one of them says this, I'm in.
I would say
I mean, I have an answer, but then it's just like it's the answer that everybody wants.
I want
But
to
it
hear
just seems
it.
it has to, and it's crazy because there's a show that had like this actually in reparations.
That works. I spoke to on my first episode. I spoke to a woman by the name of Sherry Daniels, and she, she told me what ideally reparations would look like for her. I can tell you off rip. I want to hear that there's going to be more funding made available for Black businesses to start up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or sustain, you know. I want to hear that there's going to be more funding for Black-owned nonprofits, specifically the ones that work within the community and the ones that work directly with children, with the youth. I want to hear that there's more funding for education, specifically in inner cities, or what people like to call disenfranchised neighborhoods. I want to hear that you're going to be spending more money on us. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, maybe you can't give me what I'm owed. Maybe you can't give me my 30 acres and a mule, right? However, you can help me help out my community, right? Okay, you don't want to do the work. I do. Help me help you. Help me look. You know?
But the thing is that we've had that conversation with them for so many years. Like, like, it legitimately has to be, give us what we know we deserve. And that not even just money. I'm talking land. I'm talking certain legal rights.
Yeah, but at some point, Ty, like, certain conversations sound great, but we have to be realistic about where we are right now. What we can get later and what we can get right now are two different things. And sometimes you have to work on achieving, I feel like, that half a step so that you can take that next half a step, so that maybe the next time you could take a full step, so that maybe next time you could take 20 steps, you know? But I feel like we have to fight for what we can fight for, and we have to continue fighting. You know, we can't just give up because we've been having a conversation. You're gonna hear me speak until I have nothing to speak about. Period. Wait, so post-pandemic, right? Because when we're talking about money and we're talking about like what we need, we cannot have this conversation in 2020 without, I can't even say post-pandemic, without considering the current pandemic that exists, right? So in terms of money, right? What are some trends that you've noticed due to the pandemic? What are some things that you think we need to look out for?
I would say the number one thing, honestly, is well, I can say a couple things. To watch the market, watch the. I want more people to stay like tapped into the digital era, and not just. I mean, we're technically in the digital era, but the digital financial era, because yeah, I would say that's the number one thing, because during the pandemic, and still to this day, they're saying that we have a coin shortage. They're like, I went to a Rite Aid. They were like, oh yeah, we can't give you this exact change. And I'm just like, where's all the pennies and the nickels? And they're just like, oh, it's how are all these pennies and nickels going missing?
Coin shortage first could lead to dollar shortage, could lead to the only mode of like transactions being completely digital, i.e. Apple Pay, i.e. Venmo, i.e. Cash App, i.e. Bitcoin, or the varying types of Bitcoin that are out there. Yeah. Okay, so wait, before we go, because it's 9 o'clock and we've run out of time, and I have to thank you so much for joining the Elouise Show. I have to ask you probably my favorite question to ask everyone. What is your favorite part about being a Black man hailing from Brooklyn?
Black man from Brooklyn. It's being around Black people. And I say that because being a Black person around Black people is different than being uh, a white person around Black people. I love that no matter where I go, if I'm around Black people, especially from New York, it's a different type of energy, but also multiple Black people from all over the world come to New York. So not just the fact that I I guess hate and love my community. At the same time, I can meet other people from other communities just by going into the city. Like I can meet a Black guy that's my age from London, or a Black guy my age from Sweden, or a Black girl. It's just being in one of like the biggest epicenters of just interactions from multiple different people. I always loved about New York. It's like it's never boring here technically.
It's never boring here. Again, I have to thank you so much, Ty, for joining the Elouise Show. Thank you for your perspective, for your commentary, for your insight, and for your advice.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.